Okay.
I gotta start.
All right, so it is October 1st at 6:03, and Douglas Cultural Council is going to begin their meeting. So I guess we'll start. We have Charlotte representing the
Mass Cultural Council.
Mass Cultural Council here to help us kind of reorganize some of our structure since we need it today. And I guess we'll just quickly review the notes from last meeting, which I did not, I'm sorry, type out, but I have. We, most of our meeting last time was just planning out, getting Charlotte to get here and figuring that out.
Hi.
To make sure that we have her here so we could hopefully maybe divvy up some of the jobs or figure out what we can do to lead us into the future. And that was it. That was the only thing that we talked about. Then the grant cycle's coming up. The deadline's in about 2 weeks, October 15th. And I did get the article out to 2 of the local newspapers, to the Tribune and the it's the Uxbridge something.
Uxbridge Times.
The Uxbridge Times. So it was in both of those. So hopefully that is reaching applicants and getting the word out there.
I saw somebody posted on Facebook. That was good too.
Yeah, on Facebook. I saw it.
Yeah,
I saw it in the Uxbridge
yeah.
Times. I saw it.
So hopefully the word's getting out there. All right. So I don't know what to do from here, I guess. So Charlotte, when we were here last time, we were thinking about possibly splitting up some of the duties of chairperson so it could still continue.
Yep.
I don't know if you could help us out with that or how that would work.
Actually, I didn't print it, but oh, here it is. Yeah, here we go. So this is something that you might want to think about. Is here's like you can add to it or take things away. We have this on our website, just some sample job descriptions, so then everyone can initial what they want to do. That way, it doesn't fall on just one person. Like it should never really fall on one person, just one person. But that way, someone has every person has something assigned to them. And we also have these job descriptions if you want to split it up, like chair, secretary, treasurer.
I read that.
Yeah, that's-
And I imagine that a lot of those jobs aren't part of the Douglas Cultural Council.
They are not, or they are?
I didn't, yeah. It seemed like an
beyond
awful
us?
lot of jobs.
So the
More
only
than
That
what
kind of
we
covers a
really
bigger
do.
scope
Yep.
than
Yeah.
what we do here.
So the only 3 that are really necessary are the chair, treasurer, and secretary. So the chair would just be the person like basically being the first point of contact with the Mass Cultural Council, like being the person to run the meetings, you bring people together. Secretary is taking notes, keeping records, and the treasurer would be keeping the financial information.
And I think I've been doing the secretary and then Danielle's been doing the treasurer work.
Right, I have, but Nora being Nora, there were a couple of times where there were things coming to me and I'd ask her like, can you help me with this? And I'd go to her house and then she'd be like, oh, don't worry about it, I'll just do it. And then she would do it and I would still be like, but I need to know what to do, I need to know. So I'm the treasurer, but I need some guidance on it. Exactly. I mean, I'm recently retired, but my job for the last 20 plus years has been managing a Massachusetts grant.
Yep.
So I understand the workings of it and postings and all that kind of thing that has to happen. I just need the specifics for the Cultural Council and what we have to work with, what our responsibility is, do we have to turn money back and all that kind of thing like that. So that's
Okay.
just what I need help with.
What I usually do for these meetings is I'll like pass around the guidelines and go through them quickly, and then as a question comes up with like the grant cycle or the guidelines, that's when we'll discuss it just so we don't miss anything. Does that work for you?
Sure.
Sure.
Alright, I will pass these around. Let's see. There's 2 this way. Oh. Got it. Okay. Pass the rest down that way. Hopefully you have enough. If not, yes.
I think so. You made it.
Thank you.
Okay. So let me know if I'm going too fast or if you want me to stop. I just don't want to spend too much time on the things that you don't want to focus on. So the first page just goes over what the Mass Cultural Council is and what the Local Cultural Council program is. So the Mass Cultural Council is a state agency. We get an allocation from the legislature every year. And through us, there's the Local Cultural Council program, which is you. There's one in every city and town, and you get an allocation from us every year. And your purpose is, well, the main purpose that the cultural councils have is to review grant applications and grant money out each year. Page 2 is on the cultural council operations. So councils can have between 5 and 22 members. Would definitely not recommend 22. I've never seen a council with 22. I think the biggest I've seen is maybe like 14, like for a really big town or a really big city. Let's see. And you have to be appointed by the Board of Selectmen. A term can be any length of time, actually. We say 3 years, but it can be anywhere from like 2 months to 6 years, as long as you don't exceed 6 years in a row. After 6 years, you need to take a year off before you go back on. And we added this last year that if you're waiting to appoint new members, if you have like fewer than 5 members and one of your members just cycled off and you have to have a meeting, that person can count if you're waiting to appoint someone else. But you have, looks like, at least 7 members, so you're good.
I see something here about how you can join forces with regional councils. Is that in addition to your local town council, or instead of having a local town council, you could have a regional council?
It can be either one, actually. We have some regional councils, like for example, schools that have shared districts, like Acton Boxborough is one that comes to mind, or Cultural Council of Northern Berkshire is in the northwest corner of the state because the population there is so small. So they've legally created a regional council, so there has to be someone from each municipality represented. So if there were like 5 different towns, you'd have to have at least one person from each town. So it would have to be an official thing, like you can't just unofficially say like we're merging forces with like Uxbridge this year. But that's something that you could look at if you feel like you're already doing a lot of the same things and you want to work together. But otherwise, we also have a regional approach now, so we definitely encourage you to work with your local cultural councils that are nearby, no matter what, even if you're not voting on the same grants.
Okay.
Management of funds is page 3, so that's where the treasurer information comes through. So all the local cultural council's money has to be kept in the same account, no matter like what it is. So it can be a donation, it can be money from us, it can be interest on the account. It's all in the same place. So it would just be in one account, and you would just keep track of what's interest, what's from the Mass Cultural Council. And you're entitled to interest on your account. Some councils don't know that, so every year your account gets interest because it's, in a bank account, and you're entitled to get that interest.
Okay.
And then this goes into what we call locally raised funds, which is money that comes from a source that's not the Mass Cultural Council. So there's state funds, which is Mass Cultural Council funds, and then locally raised funds, which is interest, any donations on the account. If the town gives you money, that's all locally raised. And there are fewer restrictions on the locally raised money. You can spend it when you want. You can spend it 10 years from now or this grant cycle. It doesn't really matter because we're not giving it to you. And it doesn't have to meet all of the Mass Cultural Council guidelines. So if there's a guideline we have that you don't like or it doesn't meet the guideline, you can use the local funds for that as long as it's for a cultural purpose. And this also says that you can't accumulate the state funds at the local level. So if you had any money from the Mass Cultural Council, like there was a grantee last year that never applied for reimbursement, you would grant that out this year. You wouldn't keep saving it. So money that comes from us has to be spent. And that's that. Any questions on that?
Is there a deadline on that?
On the Mass Cultural Council money?
On money, for example, someone who hasn't put in for reimbursement.
Yeah,
It's next year,
It's
right?
the next year. So if they got
So we
an
have
acceptance
that.
letter on like
Right.
December 8th, 2017, then they'd have until December 8th, 2018 to apply for reimbursement. After that, if you have the money, you
Yeah.
can reimburse them, but you're not required to.
Okay.
And if they see that the deadline's coming up and they need more time, we're in New England, let's say they were gonna have a concert in the winter and it gets snowed out and they need to have it the next year, they could write to you in what's called an extension request.
Yeah.
And then the council would just vote on whether to approve that. So then you could just make a note like, hey, we're actually giving them more than a
So
year.
how soon does that money have to be spent?
So it'd have to be spent like within that year originally. Otherwise, if you grant them an extension, if they requested an extension, you just give them a new deadline. And there's no limit there. I mean, obviously it should be within reason, like the project needs to happen.
All right, so for example, using that December date as an example, if they don't put in for, say, $200 reimbursement, what do we do with that money then?
You grant it out the next year that you can.
Okay.
So if there's a grantee from this year that you're waiting to reimburse, you keep holding back that money
Yeah.
until December 8th. So you'll probably make those grants this year without granting that out. And then probably next year you'll grant it out because you would have already voted
Okay.
before then.
All right.
And then administrative funds, so you can take up to 5% of what we give you and use it for administrative purposes like printing, postage, things like that.
Is there a way that we can do the acceptance and letter denials via email?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I knew you could do one of them via email, but I think it was the denial, I thought you had to send regular mail.
Nope, you can do regular mail.
Okay.
You might
Because that was the thing, the
Yeah.
past few years, I've just bought stamps and envelopes and stuff myself because I didn't know how to get reimbursed through it.
Yeah.
But if we can do email, that would be great.
Yeah, email works too. If the email bounces back, you might want to send a letter.
Sure.
But yeah, otherwise email's fine. The annual report says like denial letter postmark date, and that's just the old
Yep.
language, but it doesn't have to be postmarked. just
Okay.
The date was emailed.
Super.
And one more thing about administrative funds, they can't be used for food for like a council meeting. So like if you ordered food tonight, you
We
couldn't
can't go
use.
to Dunkin' Donuts on the way here.
Yeah, no, you couldn't use it for that. But if you had a public event, like you're holding a grant reception, you could spend it on food.
Okay.
Like if you had something for your grantees to meet each other and meet the
As long as it's
community.
not us personally.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Council programs. Sounds like you probably wouldn't be doing that this year, but it's you can take up to 15% of what we give you and do your own project. So if you want to know more about that, I can tell you a little bit more. So if I'm trying to think of an example of what people have done. Like if you wanted to like sponsor a float in well, that's a different thing actually. That would probably be administrative funds. If you're putting together your own project, you say like this isn't happening in Douglas and we want to see this happen and we know how to make it happen. Like you want to do the work yourself, you can use up to 15% of what we give you for that project.
Okay.
So it's kind of like you got a grant. As long as it's for you, it can't be like, oh, the school forgot to apply for a grant this year, we'll just give them some money. Like that wouldn't work that way. It would have to be something that a project that you're leading.
Okay. Interesting.
And then fundraising from sources other than the state. You can fundraise from basically anyone, and you are tax exempt. Now we went over the rest. Okay, so now I'm on page 4 for local cultural council duties. One is community input, and that's speaking with members of your community every year, whether it's like meeting in person, like if you meet them at an event, you hold an event, or a survey. However you reach out to the community, just talking to them about what they would like to see funded or what's missing. That's a requirement. And then from that, you can get the feedback from what people want and base council priorities on that if you wanted to. For example, if you notice there aren't enough music programs, you could say like we want to see more applications for music, and then that would encourage people who have that background to apply. which is the next point, which is the council priorities. So that's if you have something that you'd like to see, like I said, more music programs or a requirement. Some councils do this, like they say you need to be a resident of Douglas, or the program has to take place in Douglas. That would be an example. You would put a rule on there, but it has to be posted by September 1st, because people start applying after September 1st.
Yeah.
Sure.
And if you did put like a rule up there, like not just like we'd like to see applicants from Douglas, but like you have to be from Douglas to get a grant, then you have to follow that. You can't be like, oh, we got this really good
Yeah, you gotta
application
follow
from a different town. So that's the downside of making something a rule. Communicating with the public, it's pretty straightforward. It's just if someone writes to you, write back to them, or they call you. Advertising the availability of funds, which sounds like you've already done with 2 newspapers. Let's see, reviewing the applications, which you'll do this fall. And then financial reporting, which is what we were talking about a little bit with the account form and the annual report, which is just going over what's in the local cultural council account and how you granted the money.
So
But
we
the
did-
town accountant should be helping you with that.
With section
With
1,
this,
so
yeah.
section 1 is, and maybe 2 if they're willing.
Mhm.
So section 1 of the annual report is what happened in the last fiscal year, which is already over. So it's saying like what went in the account and what left the account. Yeah, from what was the last fiscal year? July 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2018. So they, in section 1 of the annual report, they're just saying this much was spent, this much came in, and this is what's left. And then section 2 is saying after July 1st, here's what we spent, here's what we're still holding, here's what the Mass Culture Council will give us. We're setting aside this much for administrative purposes, and then this is how much we'll be granting out. So that's where we get the most calls every year, is filling out those 2 sections, especially section 2. So if you have a question filling it out, feel free to call or email.
So we should be meeting with the town accountant?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Not everyone.
Yesterday.
Yeah, not everyone actually meets with the accountant. We'd like them to meet, but you should at least be getting the form from them.
Okay.
Yeah. And it comes with like a 4-character code, and make sure you get that from the town accountant. And that code that we give the accountant at the bottom of it is just to make sure that it came from them. And that
Okay.
came out of an audit about 10 years ago.
Like a double check.
Yeah, just to make sure that the numbers are coming from the accountant and that you've met with them.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that's that.
I have
So the annual report,
I
that's
think
part of it, and that's due January 15th after you've voted. State reviews probably won't happen this year, but each year we randomly select, I think, 3 or 4 councils that get, I don't really want to call it an audit, it's like a state review, so it's actually kind of helpful, but we have 2 auditors come and work with you and the town accountant and whoever else is involved to see what your processes are and how they can be improved. So if you get selected for one, don't panic, it's actually pretty helpful. But I don't think Douglas is on the list for this year.
I hope not.
Probably not a good year for that.
Yeah.
So what do you do? I don't know.
I mean, it can be helpful too, because you can be like, our town accountant's really slow to respond, and then, you know, when the auditor comes, they're like, oh, maybe I should be doing more of this. So that's helpful. All right, so the bottom of page 5, that's talking about the grant cycle. So this is what the applicants are reading when they apply.
Right.
So LCC grants are reimbursement based. So that means that they need to show receipts or invoices. So if they applied for $500 and you granted them $500, they need to show you $500 in either receipts or invoices to get reimbursed for that amount. And they can get reimbursed for a lesser amount, you know, if they spent less. If you granted them $500 and they only spent $400, that's fine. You would just grant the extra $100 the next year to someone else, maybe them. And the grant payment pilot, this year and last year, we had about, I want to say 16 councils that we're doing a pilot program with, where they're actually giving direct grants, so it's not reimbursement based. And the reason why we're doing it as a pilot program is because it is legal, but town accountants are so used to being reimbursement based
Yeah.
that it takes a lot of hand holding and talking them through. So we're trying to figure out what issues come up this year with the town accountants, what their concerns are, so that when we make it every council, it won't be, a big roadblock. So hopefully that will be next year, but we'll see. I'm pretty sure the executive director really wants to push this one out. So the good thing about this is that people who don't have the financial means to spend their own money first can just get a grant. And I get questions about what happens if someone doesn't spend the money. We don't want you to track someone down for $200, tons of energy. Ask for it back. They can pay it back. But if you never get it back, it's kind of like an honor system. It's they wouldn't get a grant the next year. But so far, it's worked out. We'll see how it goes in the future. Okay. So eligibility. The application deadline is always October 15th, or if it's on a weekend, then it's the Monday following it. This is the one rule that we don't make any exceptions for. If someone forgets to press submit, we just can't accept it. So there's no lead applications. Grants can be for basically anything: field trips, fellowships, projects, even equipment, operating sport. So pretty much the sky's the limit there. There's an 18-month window of eligibility. This kind of confuses people. So for this year, because we have both the fiscal year and the calendar year, it kind of covers both. So for this year, they can apply for a project that already happened from July 1st of 2018 up until December 2019. Because it's reimbursement based, they might not know if the project happened before they got the grant, so that's why it works that way. All applicants have to be in Massachusetts, so this is kind of something that comes up. I had a council that's on the Rhode Island border ask me about they were giving grants to a school that was going to a field trip in Rhode Island, and the school has to be the applicant. So they can go to Rhode Island, but the venue in Rhode Island can't apply. Or if the library's bringing in someone from out of state, the library has to apply. So as long as the applicant is based in Massachusetts, that's okay. Individuals can apply with artists or anyone putting on a project. Incorporated private nonprofits, those are Museum of Fine Arts, 501c3s. Unincorporated associations, so that can be the PTO or just a group of people that have a common objective. Public schools, libraries, senior center, basically any part of the town can apply. And religious organizations, as long as the project is not to advance religion. So a church could apply if they're putting on a community program, but not if it's for Sunday school lessons. Criteria is pretty straightforward. It has to fall into arts, humanities, and science. So arts, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Humanities would be history, psychology, philosophy, basically anything that's not the arts but deals with that, human values and aspirations, we say. Science is basically learning about science. So you could fund someone from the Audubon Society to talk about birds, but not the research on the birds, because or a research lab, because that would be funding the research. But learning about science is still cultural. So, or going for a nature walk, if there's signs on the walk, that counts as science that we can fund because it's learning about it. Public benefit. This is what you're looking at the most when you're evaluating the grants, is how much will it benefit our community. There can be a really great project that only impacts one person, or two people, or a really small amount, but it might have a bigger impact on their lives than a festival where everyone just buys a hot dog. So things to keep in mind. Non-discrimination. Can't discriminate on the basis of race, gender, religion, etc. And the venues have to be accessible as well. You can work with your applicant. So if let's say it's taking place, especially like outdoors, where it's not necessarily like wheelchair accessible. There's still ways to get around it by like having a video showing that if you can't actually go down the trail, then you have you know, something that you can do instead. Or, for example, if just in nature, it's what's it called? An undue hardship. Like there's no way to make it actually physically accessible.
Right.
Then that's different. But I wouldn't turn someone down because they're not accessible. The physically accessible comes up. So encourage them to work around it. If they're not sure, like we actually have someone in-house that deals with that. So write me an email or call me. The local criteria I talked about a little bit. That's just the council priorities. So applicants need to look at that before they apply if you have any additional requirements. Grant restrictions, food and beverages can't be reimbursed. And then scholarships are eligible as long as the person receiving the scholarship is not applying. So a student who wants to go to an art camp can't apply for the scholarship, but the art camp can apply for getting scholarships or giving scholarships to students. Council programming, I talked about that a little bit before. That's if you wanted to do your own program. You can take part of your allocation for that. And you can't spend that 15% on administrative expenses because you already have the 5% for that. Yeah, we don't need to go over that whole page considering you're not doing that. You might next year. Let's see. So for the grant review, now I'm on page 10. You can't disapprove a grant for a technical reason, like if they, I don't know, let's say they spelled Douglas wrong and you said everything has to take place in Douglas and they spelled Douglas like with an E instead of an A, like you know it's Douglas. So, or like they forgot to sign it or something that like isn't really like you know is a technical thing. Yeah. And the one exception is like if there's a late application, you just can't do anything about that. You can't accept it.
Well, we won't even get it, would we?
They're now
they
all
might mail it to
online,
you
right?
or something
Okay,
like
but
that.
because
Yeah.
otherwise it's all online now, so we
Online,
wouldn't even
right.
have access to it otherwise.
Yeah, well, this happens actually online because now you can look at the applications online. So last year we had some councils being like, oh, how do we saw this draft and we want to accept it. How do we do it? But it's like, they didn't submit it, so you can't accept it.
Gotcha.
So you'll see who actually didn't submit it, but you can't review those ones. I mean, you can read them, but you can't consider
You
them.
can choose, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Excuse me. Applicant interviews, we really actually discourage those. Some councils do that where they have their applicants come in and talk more about their projects. But considering that the grant amount is so small and not everyone can come in for an interview, I wouldn't really encourage you to do that. It's kind of not really a fair process. Open meeting law, it looks like you're doing that. Everything has to be in an open what do you call it? Open to the public in an accessible space, like not someone's house or somewhere you can't really get in unless if you're not a member of the public, and needs to be posted 2 business days in advance. And this comes up a lot in the internet age. You can't Skype in to a meeting or call into a meeting or just email your preferences. Like you have to be there to be able to weigh in.
Okay. That was a question that came up at some point about being able to do that.
Yeah. So if like you're on
And
vacation
especially
during the
when
voting meeting.
we're still in that boat where we don't really have a chairperson
Yeah.
to try to do some decisions when there's no chairperson, but we can't talk when we're not together. It's kind of,
Yeah,
What
well,
do we do?
you can
Yeah.
distribute information, so you can say, here are the
Like
grants that we're
making
going to
dates.
discuss tonight, but you can't say, like, I think this one, we should fund this
Exactly.
one, or this
Right.
project
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
seem right to me.
Yeah.
Or if, I was going to say, if someone's on vacation, they can't say, here's my thoughts on all
Right.
these applications. You can't consider that because they didn't do that in
Okay.
person.
Okay.
And the way to look at it is like if someone just came to the meeting from the public, they would need to be able to access the information the same way you do. So they would know if they're an applicant or someone that would be affected by these grant applications, they would know why it was disapproved or what went into making it approved or disapproved. And if you emailed it, they wouldn't have access to that information.
Right.
Let's see, conflict of interest law. We actually have a whole page on that if it does come up, but this happens especially in smaller towns where council members are on a lot of different committees as well, or they're just involved, with multiple things.
Pretty
so.
much everybody here. Well, two of us are on the Board of Library Trustees,
Yeah,
so anytime there's
so- Step out.
an application, we have to step out.
Exactly. So you would sit out.
Yeah.
If this happened actually in Drake-It, that like the garden club applied, and everyone on the culture council was also members of the garden club. So they had to, and in that case, they couldn't vote because there would be no one. So they had to go to their town and request an exemption, which means that the town acknowledged that there's a conflict of interest, but it gives them permission to vote. So that would happen if like more than half of you couldn't vote. But it doesn't happen very often.
If one person doesn't come, then.
That's it.
Yeah. Oh, and I didn't go over this, but a quorum is half plus one. So are you 7?
We're 7.
Okay, so that would just be 4.
Okay.
Oh, and another thing that comes up with conflict of interest is that members can apply for a grant for themselves. You couldn't apply for one for, if you worked there, like if you worked at the library, you can't apply for a grant on behalf of the library because that's kind of a conflict of interest because you are an employee. But if you are, for example, an artist or a musician and you want to apply for this concert that you're going to give, you could do that. But then you have to sit out of the voting.
Right.
Yeah. Public records. So all your information is public. So is everything in the Mass Cultural Council. So if you wanted to see our emails from the past 10 years, you could request them. So if someone requests information, you need to give it to them. And I get this question a lot about how long to keep records. People will go to the garage and they have boxes and boxes of Cultural Council information. So it's 6 years. Beyond that, you don't have to keep it, but talk to your town about how they want to store it, because sometimes they store it longer. But after 6 years, it's not part of public records law. All right, so reconsideration. This comes up a lot, actually, during the grant cycle. Have you gotten a reconsideration request before that you know of?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Not that I know of.
That's good. We get about 20 a year, I want to say, across all 329 councils. So
wow.
it still happens. So that's when you have your grant meeting and you vote and you say, here are the applications we will accept and here are the ones we'll deny. And first you contact the ones that you think you're going to deny and you send them a denial letter. And they have 15 days to get back to you and us to say, I don't think you followed the guidelines. It's not to say, I think my project has merit, you should fund it, because at that point, you've already reviewed it. But if they say, like, you denied me because you said I don't live in Douglas, but there's nothing on the website that says I need to live in Douglas, then we would review that and say, actually, it looks like the council didn't follow guidelines when they reviewed your application, so they have to meet again.
And go back to the drawing
Yeah.
board, basically.
And that when you meet again, it's like as if it's for the first time, and you might actually end up approving them. So that's why you don't send the acceptance letters yet, because you might change the amounts that you're granting to everyone.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah. So acceptance letters are always last. So you have your voting meeting, you send denial letters, you wait 15 days, you submit the annual report, just as more checks and balances to make sure your finances are all right, because you might have done the annual report and realized, like, oh, it doesn't match up, like the account form doesn't balance, but you already sent acceptance letters, so you don't want that to happen. So acceptance letters are always last.
Okay.
Oh, I should mention this too. Insufficient funds doesn't count as a denial reason. So how it was explained to me is you have 2 applications and they're both fine. They both follow the guidelines, and you chose one over the other. And the reason why you chose one was because it had more public benefit, just because you thought it would have more impact or it was just a better project. So the one that you denied, you wouldn't say insufficient funds because you had enough to fund one or the other. So you would say it doesn't have as much public benefit as other applications you received. And that's something that we just don't argue with. So if someone came with a reconsideration request and said, actually my project does have benefit, we would just go back to them and say, it looks like the council followed the guidelines. This is a valid reason. Right. You know, try again next year.
Okay.
Now I'm on page 11. So grantees need to acknowledge that the funds came from you, so people know who the Douglas Cultural Council is. They could announce it if it's at an event or put it on their materials, and usually they'll send that with their reimbursement request. You can have a conditional approval. For example, if it's you see an application that's held at a venue that's not accessible, or you think it would actually be better somewhere else, or lots of reasons. So you can say, we'll accept this if this happens, and then the grantee can decide whether to do it. So you can put conditions on a grant. Extensions I talked about. Let's say the concert didn't happen because there was a snowstorm. They could write to you and say, we need more than a year, and you either approve it or disapprove it. If you approve it, it should be likely to happen. Like, it seems like they have everything together and they just need another year instead of a new deadline. Modifications are kind of the same. They're saying we need to change something about our project, not necessarily the date, but we had this program and we were going to have this person come and lead it, but now it'll be a different person on a slightly different subject. You would look and see if it meets the original purpose of the grant, if it still has public benefit.
Mm-hmm.
All right, reimbursement, I kind of went over already. Reimbursement process, I think the only thing I have to add to that, Garrett was supposed to have 1 year to request reimbursement. If you get a reimbursement request that's like, what did they do for our project? We approved A, and this looks like B. It doesn't look like what we approved at all. You can speak with the grantee and reach a compromise solution. They might, they might have had a project for kids at the school, and they were supposed to bring in this type of person on this subject, but they brought in someone else, and you're like, no, this is for the wrong audience or not what we thought it was going to be. They could maybe bring in that new person that you wanted, and then you could reimburse them, or you reach a compromise solution where you reimburse them half. There's all different situations. But if this comes up, it just involves kind of a back and forth of talking to them and reaching a compromise. Any questions there?
No.
Okay. I can quickly go over the grant cycle timeline, and then we're basically done. So this is the busy time of year. So around late summer, that's when you would publicize the availability of the grant cycle. So you would say, Douglas Cultural Council is accepting applications for this year. It sounds like we've done that. If you have any council priorities, you would post them online and just make sure your contact information is up to date on your page. We gave you your allocation amount, which I think is
5,100.
51? Oh, good. Yeah, 45 this year is the minimum, so you're above that. Let's see. And then this month, the applications will come to you by October 15th. And you'll submit the account form to us by that date, and you should determine the amount available for granting right after that. So that's the annual report. And if you need help with that, just call or email, and I can walk you through it.
I kind of looked at it, and I worked on it brief, with Nora in the past. So if I have questions, I'll.
Yeah, it's definitely not worth spending hours on it. I can just help you in 3 seconds, probably. So
Okay,
if you're like,
right,
this is me,
okay.
Just call me or email me.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
And then once you get your applications, you can have your voting meeting, basically anytime after October 15th, but you want time to review them, so probably not until November. And then you send your disapproval letters right after that meeting. If you have any reconsideration requests that come in, you'll do them then. And you'll do your annual report saying, here's who we decided to grant money to. And then you'll submit that to us in January. And then we'll give you the money. And then you can start reimbursing your grantees. And that's basically it. And there's a little bit more here about open meeting law and conflict of interest, if you have any questions about that. But a lot of it's on our website too. So that was the quick run through.
Great.
All right.
So we submit one section of the annual report in October and the rest of the report in January?
Yep, so the first two sections are basically your finances. You're saying this is how much we have in our account that we can grant out. So that's determining how much you can grant. And then what you submit in January is saying, we reviewed our applications and here's who's receiving money.
Gotcha.
So I would meet with, is it Jean? Is Jean the person?
I don't know.
I think it's Jean.
I think it's Jeannie.
I'm pretty sure it's Jean. Which I need to do like soon.
I can check too when I get back to the office. I should have checked before I came. But
Okay.
if they lost the form that we sent them, we can send it again. Or if it
Okay.
has to go to someone else. There's a lot of turnover in town accountants. So,
We're good. I think we're entrenched.
Thank you.
yeah, sure.
I think we're good.
So should we pass this
I
around?
was just gonna,
You can
you have
if you
the
want
papers
to.
of the, yeah.
Or
I
just
think
the-
we're at the point where
The little responsibility list?
we have
Yeah.
a secretary and treasurer, but then as far as like the who's in charge, who's leading it, we don't really have somebody.
Yeah. So I would just choose someone that's good at like bringing people together, keeping in touch, kind of taking over the meeting. That's basically all we need from the chair is just being that point of contact for the council and for me. Even just a name.
Who's gonna say whose name?
I have a job.
Me too.
Yeah, I wouldn't have one person do like everything because it sounds like Nora brought this up too. Like she did a lot in the past too.
Right.
Was.
And you wanted to learn, you're like, oh wait, no, I need to know what you did. And she's like, I'll do it.
Exactly,
And now you're
right.
trying to figure it
it's-
out.
And now we're seeing,
I don't really know what
in
any
some
of this
time,
is,
you know,
so I'll
in the short
fill in
term,
the
it's
lady
easy.
stuff that
Yeah.
is
But in the
left
long
over.
term, now we're like, okay, now what do we do? But like I say, I've had experience with it. I'm sure if I spend some time on it, I can hopefully figure it out. I just need to touch base with what we already have.
Yeah, and we're here to help. I send reminders, like, we get flagged, like, who hasn't submitted things yet, and I'll send reminders. And if you have any questions, when you get those emails, or even when you're working on something, I'm always there to help. So it shouldn't be a really big ordeal.
If we run through this exercise and we still find ourselves leaderless, would you recommend that we talk with surrounding towns about joining up?
You could, but I mean, there might be someone who joins who still doesn't want to become the leader. So it's kind of like you have enough members right now. It's just really about deciding who wants to just be the chair. I mean, it's not saying that they have to do like 70% of the council's work or like 100%. It's just saying they'll be the main point of contact and maybe like emailing to say here's when our next meeting is, like getting responses from everyone. That's basically the basic role for the chair because the secretary is like
Right, I do the
keeping
letters.
records and notes.
And the letters, which are the big part, the denial and acceptance letters, getting that out, and I've done that.
Yeah, and the treasurer has all the financial information. So the chair is just being the point of contact.
Okay.
Wow, I don't know. I just started night school and I don't know if it's going to be a lot for me.
We did have someone said they'd partial chair. I think that would be a full chair.
Oh, you can have co-chairs too. I didn't mention that. Some councils do that where they'll have two people, if that works better.
I can do the logistics and stuff. I just feel hypocritical because I'm not here in the summer to go to most of the events. So.
And that's fine, because I think a lot of us are.
I think a lot of us are here to do all of that.
That's fine too, because the summer's actually the slowest for the local cultural councils. I mean,
As far as
things are
that's
Right now, we've got a lot going on now
Yeah.
Yeah,
through winter.
I'm sometimes here, but often that's my only time off. So.
I think between the rest of us, I mean, I'm around for most of the summer, it can be.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this summer
The
was bad for me,
Concerts
though,
and the
so-
This one
events
was a
and.
tricky one, but for the most part.
Mm.
Yeah, I can say the cultural councils that function the best are the ones where people, like, it wouldn't just be like the chair or whoever
Right.
would be
Right.
doing everything and going out and meeting people. It would be all the council members. So I think that would be fine if you're away in the summer. Like, don't feel like you can't go away if you become chair. Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I would definitely like live your life. Other people are around to handle it.
Well, that's fine then. I don't mind doing that.
Okay.
logistics
Yeah.
and stuff.
And the ones that I see this problem happen a lot where the chair will kind of get into the groove of things and just be like, I'll handle it, I'll take over.
That's, yeah.
And then it sounds
Yeah,
like
that's
a
where
little
we
bit what
were, where
happened
we were
here.
all a
And then
little
when the chair
gun shy
leaves,
on
you're
what
like,
it means, but to have it all, and I think the website also, with everything explained.
Yeah, yeah.
It's been
And
helpful.
As I mentioned before, we're always here to help. So if you feel lost or confused, you can always write to me or email me. You shouldn't be working very hard, I think, to do that. I mean, unless you want to go above and beyond, but it shouldn't be like a lot of work otherwise.
So are you going to be to help him out?
Sure.
Or are you still looking for one? I mean, we all can help
Right,
out.
I think we just need point of contact
You
for
need
the
somebody who's in charge of like
communication.
getting the word out for meetings and things like that.
Communication
And
center.
one of the big things is posting the meeting. You've got to be familiar with the open meeting rules. So you have to be.
Yeah, once
anyone
once you
can
go
do
through and we set a
that,
date,
right.
I would easily quick contact Christine. I did it the last few times. It's easy enough.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be the chair that does. Like the chair can just be main point of contact.
Because
but
that
the
would
chair
make
doesn't have
sense
to
if
do like what's
secretary does that
in
anyway.
here.
Once it's organized, I can easily contact.
Okay. Just making sure we have all our bases covered.
Right. I was like 3 weeks early because I think if you're on time, you're late. So I was very early.
That's why you're a teacher.
As soon as we.
Like that too. I remember in college there was a paper due and someone was like, I haven't started yet. I was like, oh, me neither. I already finished it.
That was the only thing. I procrastinate with my that kind of work. But
Yeah.
the stuff that doesn't truly matter, I'm like a month early on that.
Okay. That sounds okay. It sounds
Right.
like you're set because you have 2 co-chairs and a secretary and a treasurer, and then everyone can step up and chip in.
Perfect.
Is there anything else I can?
So do they need to do anything that their co-chairs announce it to the world
No,
Grant,
no.
if
It's really
Hear
just
ye,
for,
hear ye.
it's just
Grant
really for
pulled our
you
hats.
and us to know like if they need a
okay.
main point of contact who is.
Yeah.
So I'm not like
Perfect.
emailing the entire council all the time.
Okay.
Or if I need to call someone to just get an update.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay,
And that doesn't mean that other people can't call me or email me.
Right.
gotcha.
I'd be happy to help with some of these
Oh, yeah, there's
responsibilities,
a
like
lot of-
sending letters or doing up the spreadsheet to show like which
Yep.
grants we have. So I'd be happy to help with some of that stuff, but being that this was my second meeting and I had no idea what I was doing here, I didn't want to take on any kind of like
Gotcha.
governing responsibility.
Or we'll pile on you.
Yeah, and you
By
can also
meeting
do more
3.
that's not in there. Like if you want to like do something fun that's not listed, like be an outreach person or publicity, like do social media. Like that's not required, but if you want to get the word out that way and like have a Facebook page, you could have someone managing that.
Who manages that?
I do, but I also manage like 4 other Facebook pages, and that one kind of took
No.
the wayside, unfortunately.
You can pass that off then.
Okay,
You can pass that off to
To you?
manager. Maybe.
that's fine.
I didn't even know we had a Facebook.
Well, I did El Gung Ho last year, and then I run a couple for school and for math-based ones, and I kind of got sucked into that more.
Yeah.
But I can turn over leadership.
Because, yeah, we were recording the concerts and posting them on the.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Someone that
Yeah,
can, Facebook savvy.
And if your town
Facebook
has a
savvy?
Facebook page, you can post,
No.
like kind of cross-post it. You can share
Yeah,
your stuff
That's what
on
we've
their
done
page.
fine,
in the
we can.
past, like some
Yep.
events that are going on, like come on down, you still have time, that kind of stuff, or things coming up, or applicants to apply.
Good. Great.
All right.
I'll leave my business cards and
Thank you.
Great.
if you need them.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, it was very helpful.
Yeah. Nice meeting you all.
Thanks. You too.
you too.
Thank you, ooh, pretty.
Yeah, I think with all
Yeah, we
of
just got
this-
new branding, so that's.
You came all the way
I
down
saw a new
from-
logo and stuff.
You came all the way down from Boston?
I did, yeah. I've gone farther. Last week I was in, where was I? I was in Buckland, which is where like Shelburne Falls is.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's a 2-hour drive.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, this is nothing. This is like an hour.
Well,
we
thank
appreciate
you.
it. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's helpful.
All right. And be in touch if you have questions, especially with the financial reporting.
I'm gonna look at it. I'm in the middle of tearing my house apart and throwing things out and having a yard sale, but I'm gonna look at it.
Okay. Yeah, you have time. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Is there anything else that we need to talk about?
Do we have that prospective new
An
member?
issue with
No.
programs are supposed to be in accessible
Yeah.
venues.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the farm?
Library.
Oh, the library isn't accepted. Right.
I'm not worried about anything, but the library is not accessible.
Well, she did say that we don't have to, we
But also a
still
lot of
can
the
grant.
programs are kid-based and they are in the basement and there's.
That's not
that door.
handicap accessible.
It's not?
It's not. You couldn't
No.
get a wheelchair through there.
Okay, I don't know.
If someone
what
had to
it
go
was
to the
back there.
bathroom,
All
it's-
of that too.
an able-bodied person can't really go to the bathroom
I
in there.
agree.
But she did say you could work around that, it wasn't an
So I'm
absolute
not sure
requirement.
about, and I
That's
know.
what I took from it.
Right.
I
Yeah.
know. I would have to look back at what we funded from last year. I think some of it was for maybe, if it's outdoor activities, that's not a problem at all.
But we could ask her, but I don't think that would be a
I
reason
wasn't
to
gonna bring it
deny.
up, like,
But
while she was here, because I didn't want to open up a can of worms.
Mhm.
But that is an issue.
It's on record anyway.
Yeah, that might be
Something to think
we could
about
ask.
and figure out exactly what it is if they apply again, which I'm assuming.
Yeah.
We'll just see what it is
Well,
and
the
then.
other thing is, for the last 2 years, Deb's been applying, sending a paper application in, and we
That's right.
weren't
She
supposed to
needs to
accept it
know.
last year, and we did.
Right, it has to be
We
online.
can't do it this year, we
So she has
can't.
to do it online.
I will, what am I doing tomorrow?
Does she have the option to
I'll
run
see
any
her-
of these?
Oh, I'll see her tomorrow because I'm going to tutor at the library tomorrow. So
Oh, okay.
I'll write myself a reminder.
Because I was gonna say I could stop by and.
So if I don't write it down, I won't.
Remind and let her know that, and, well, actually, as, as acting chair of the Board of Library Trustees, I probably should, here, now we're wearing different hats, I don't know if I should mention it to Justin, is that something we need to be, I don't want somebody to come back and say, oh, I see the Cultural Council funded this music
And
program, and
it's
I
not
couldn't get in
accessible.
there, or my kid couldn't get in there, and that wasn't
Yeah,
fair.
do they have the option of having these activities in a different location?
Well, I was gonna say, I think I'd have to look back on what we funded last year, and I think at least one of them was an outdoor activity I think we helped to pay for, or
At the
funded.
library?
I think.
I believe it was too.
But then we
I
had all the
know
concerts at the farm, and that's also not accessible.
Right.
Technically, the way he has it set up, though, you can drive
You
right down
right
there,
to where you were.
and you could
Yeah.
I've been there before and
Bring a
I've seen a
wheelchair. You
person
know
with
how
a
the stage
wheelchair.
is
And there was
set?
a wheelchair
Yep.
accessible bathroom, or did they? say
Yeah, they had a
maybe
porta
next
potty, I
year?
think.
No,
I
but
think then
that's-
he was planning on doing it. I feel like that came up of that there will be one next year, but
Okay.
it wasn't this year.
I think that's something we maybe need to be kind
A
of
little more
aware
aware.
of, a little bit more.
I can ask him. I'm going to pick up my vegetables on Friday.
Okay. But having been there for concerts, I don't see where there's an issue of it not being handicap accessible.
Right, 'cause
It's
you
just with the
literally could
bathroom.
just- you could
Yeah, you could
drive
drive down, and they had spaces there for people to park. And I'm sure
yeah.
if somebody
Somebody
had a
would need-
handicap plate or had,
They would
showed
use
that they needed help, that he would have found a place for them.
Absolutely.
It's just the bathroom.
So just kind of be more aware of that when we're looking.
But she also said that you could have an alternate activity. I
Right.
don't know how that would work for a library thing, but
Right.
we could look into what that would look like.
I think it's, well, you know what, maybe we're just jumping the gun. Let's wait.
Right, just have it in the back of our mind.
Yeah, yeah. And we definitely should bring it up, make sure that Deb knows about.
The online?
The
Yep, I'll be there
online.
tomorrow afternoon, so I'll tell him.
And, you know what, I'll send Justin an email and see what he thinks of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's anything that we need to be concerned about. I'm just, what are they showing? Because she said something about working with them.
I missed the last meeting, but I thought that we had to vote on a new member or something?
I think, well, we didn't do anything because we had to get the leadership, like the chairperson, organized first.
Okay. Do we need to do that now then?
I don't know.
All right.
Do we have like a physical application? or-
Yeah, an application went out a while ago
But we don't have it.
to us. It went to all of us.
There's like
From
a
Susanna?
notice, but I don't know.
I
No, it was an application.
It was.
Oh, it was.
Yeah. It was a while ago. It was like 2 months maybe. Do you guys, nobody remembers?
I remember, I read it. Are other members familiar with the application?
No, but I could
I
find
didn't
it
see right that
now.
it was attached, but I remember them asking if we support the application, but I think at the
Yeah,
time,
it's here.
I'm not sure if
Um,
all of us read it. I know I didn't realize it was attached, so.
There's, not to mention names, but he has been
Causing problems?
asked to leave other meetings
Other councils?
Other
Yeah.
committees,
with his
yeah.
behavior.
Yeah.
He was he was at one of the concerts at the orchard, and I guess he came after Nora with a kind of a vengeance about kind of crazy questions about things. I don't know, after hearing and reading things in the paper about the altercations that happened or incidents that happened, I'm kind of,
Leery?
Yeah, I'm leery also. I
I'm
don't
not
think,
too
not at this point.
Can-
I don't think that's a
can we
good
be?
idea.
Are we, I mean,
Legally, yes, we can
Yes.
say that.
we can choose, it's an appointed position, it's not, so we decide, it's not like they're,
so you can make a decision on grounds of reputation?
I think we would just
I think-
contact Suzanne and tell her that we don't support the appointment.
I think that's our
Yeah.
role, is just to say whether we support it or not. It's
Yeah.
actually, it'd be
so I
the Board
think
of
we would
Selectmen
need to
that
vote
would.
on whether or not, so we would need a motion to, how would we,
Not support?
not to support or not support
gonna
his
say his
application
name,
as a member?
Right?
Hmm?
Gonna say his name on record?
I don't know. I don't know the legal part.
I would not. I would wait. I would not do that unless I would say.
My internet's not.
So I would
coming
make a motion that, to consider the application that was filed with us to be a member of the Cultural Council in Douglas. So someone would need to second that.
Okay, so I second not supporting.
Well, second,
Or
just second the motion to
second the
consider
motion to
it.
consider.
Now we'll open it up to discussion.
We just did.
And I will say, based on reading accounts in the newspaper of things that happened and were reported and written up in the newspaper, as well as other incidents that happened that weren't reported in the paper, I would be reluctant to approve his application.
So you would deny it?
Well, we haven't done a vote yet. We're open for discussion right now. So,
So all in favor?
do we have any other discussion?
I don't
agree.
know
I
him. I don't know
saw
what you
the-
saw, so I can't just base it on what you're saying.
Okay.
You know, I think it's,
All the.
But
Board of
it's majority
Selectmen
vote,
meetings
though.
are- Right, and all the Board of
Yeah.
Selectmen meetings, I've seen all of those.
And that's
Those are
what
all
I don't
recorded
see.
if you
Yeah,
wanted to go back
okay.
and, yeah. I just don't, I don't think this,
We can,
right
one
now.
thing we can do is if maybe it's best to table that, and then when we meet, set a meeting in November,
I mean, you guys know better than
and
us.
then
I mean,
if we can go back and review the application,
Okay.
and,
Okay.
it's a quick Google search when I get home.
exactly, exactly.
I
And then
just wanna do my
So we
research.
can come back and have a little more
Yeah.
educated
Well, we just don't know.
decision to make.
I mean, there's enough hands if You want to deny it now, it's totally fine.
We want everyone coming to table fair, though, if you feel like you're not prepared, if you don't know.
Right. So, then do we want to table it?
Sure.
Okay, we'll table it. We'll table the
Contact Suzanne and tell her that it's tabled until the next meeting.
Yeah.
Has this person been to a Board of Selectmen meeting to be interviewed? Because I thought that was our process.
I think it got postponed, so he hasn't, not for
Okay.
this position, no.
We
I
would
know
be
it
the
had been
ones-
scheduled at one point, and then I
Right,
think it
we
got postponed.
We would be the ones to
say-
present him to the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
Gotcha.
So if we choose not to move forward with it, then it wouldn't go any further.
Okay.
But it was just that one applicant back in August
Yes, there was
1st?
just one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure because I'm bad with emails lately.
Don't worry.
So, I guess
I
we
think
would,
that's it, and then we'll just look towards,
we'll set a date. Do we
November-ish.
want to set a date now, or do we want to,
Yes.
we need to do it, right, where's
Well, just to avoid the email.
Now, is
back
it
and
bad
forth
for
on
us to promote, like, looking for committee, in like, members?
Oh, no, you can do
you
that
can do that.
anytime. You can, anytime, you're a goodwill ambassador, you can go out there and say, hey, we're always looking for
Right.
cultural council members, you can have as many as we want.
I ended up here because of Keith. He had posted something on Facebook about how all these different committees in town were looking for members.
Oh, yes,
And
yes.
so I talked with Suzanne, I said, what's the one with the least amount of responsibility out of these three?
Yeah.
She pointed me here.
I know, I applied for this one and I wanted to go on the finance committee, but he interviewed me with another person and, I mean, which is totally fine, but FinCom, being on the FinCom, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
it sounds like
Now, if you're
it.
back in school,
I know.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do Oktoberfest, but
I was going to do that too, but I was worried about my ability to commit.
yeah, because it's a lot.
There's not many people on that out there.
Really?
Just a handful of people.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
man.
Yeah. I'd be happy to help with like a bit of it, but I was worried that I couldn't do
So,
everything.
getting back to cultural
Sorry.
council, what is a good night?
So,
All the applicants have to be in by what, October 15th?
October 15th. So we want to wait until November.
Yep.
Mid-November?
Yeah, we want to do it before we get into any kind of holiday insanity that people
Yep.
Yep.
make themselves go through.
Is this building open on Veterans Day?
No.
Okay.
I am pretty much open, except for Mondays though, because my son has counseling.
Okay.
How about
Okay.
Tuesday the 13th
Other than that,
That
I'm
should be
pretty good.
fine.
at 6
Yeah.
p.m.?
6 p.m. works really well for me.
I can email Christine.
I could even get here as early as 5:30, I discovered, if that's better for
Is
anybody.
6
but-
better for you, Bev?
I just got here by 6. So
Okay.
yeah, 6 actually would be better. I mean, if it
Okay.
ends up that someone else has a conflict and I could leave work earlier.
Does the meeting just go till 7, or are we going to
Nope,
meet
till
longer?
This
we're
is
done.
this is one of the longer ones because we have to go through, I mean, you can go online and look at the applications. We got in trouble last year because we all brought our laptops and we were trying to get on. And we were saying the password out loud.
I remember that.
That was crazy.
I brought it in my pocket written on a piece of paper,
I remember that.
but
was-
you can't,
You can't say that on public.
you can't say it on,
Yeah.
on TV.
Yeah, that was a little.
Is it uncool for me to bring a sandwich or something if we're going to be
No,
meeting for a
not at
while?
all.
No, not
I
at
think last time we
all.
brought coffees.
I've made food before
Okay.
for everybody.
No,
Hopefully
that's
soon.
So
Thanks.
November 13th at 6, okay.
Yeah, so what council members want to do is, after October 15th, to go online. Now, we should be able to we can send the password by email
Yes.
Yes.
to each other.
Yes.
So,
I believe,
Hadn't
unless
she
it's
sent it to
changed, we
us?
have it.
Yeah.
And from
Okay,
Charlotte,
We
right?
have it.
Yes, she gave it to us a while
We
back.
have password.
After the last screw up we did.
After
Okay.
change it every so often too. So
Yeah, and there was a
they
new
do.
one that was
We
sent
get an email with the change.
recently, yep.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I just used it today and it worked, so we're good. Yeah, so to go on there and read through,
I'll send everyone an email also on the 15th, just reminding everyone, here you go, here's. all the
Yeah, that's a
applicants
good
should be in.
idea.
Okay.
Because we're not all gonna remember.
Right.
And that way, that gives everyone enough time to go in, because you'll be able to go in, read the applicants.
you want to wait till after the 15th though, in case somebody hits
Oh, yeah,
that
yeah.
submit button at 11:59 PM.
I'm not
Don't try
early
to
like
print it,
her.
it was like 80.
Yeah.
90.
I know,
Yeah.
I tried
No.
last year.
Yeah,
Bad
I
idea.
almost did at work and I was like, probably not.
Yeah, so I'll send it
a long
after,
one.
on like the 16th or 17th, just reminding
Yeah,
everyone.
that's a great
Okay,
idea.
thank you.
So are we good? All right, now in the meantime, I'm gonna go and see if I can figure out the,
Do
I
we
just need to get the figures from
vote?
last year.
I think we must need to vote the chair and co-chair in.
Oh, sure.
Oh,
yes. So,
I make a motion to vote.
because did you guys get re-voted in again, or maybe we didn't need to?
No, it wasn't up.
It wasn't
Yeah,
up.
it
The last
wasn't
time it was
up.
up, we did. So I make a motion to make Bev and Dana the co-chairs.
second?
All those in favor?
Aye. Hurry.
It's official now.
Yeah, all right, we're
Thank you.
gonna keep this
Yes.
thing moving, right?
All right, so I'm motion to end, finish,
Yeah.
Adjourn.
adjourn? Great. Is that what that word is?
Second.
All those in favor?
I
Who's opposed?
Oh, I wanna stay for